Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. I would like to say thank you for coming our presentation. It's great to see you all. Okay, let me introduce myself and my partner. I am Ulayra Hazizah and my partner are Silvi Nur Hidayati and Oktafia Dwi Susanti. Okay, my friends, in this presentation, we will discuss about the construction. The first, we will explain about the definition of the construction, and then the types of the construction, and then different construction and different meaning, and then relationship between the construction, and finally we will discuss about the copula construction.
Okay, here I want to explain introduction contraction. The term contraction is ubiquitous in contemporary synthetic literature, being used informally to refer to linguistic expression in a variety of ways. The term contraction is widely used to characterize certain kinds of form-meaning pairings, as when we refer to possessive contraction or the verb participle contraction. Here you can see the example. Okay, on this view, one illustrates three different form meaning pairings even though one component of the meaning is shared across all three, while two illustrates one form meaning pairing even though independent factors distort the shared form, and the correct characterization of the meaning component might be elusive. At the same time, number 2C illustrates a VH question contraction in addition to the verb particle contraction, since the properties of the VH question contraction. Okay, next, the term contraction is not a technical term or outside of contraction grammar, and consequently it is difficult to define. As an approximation, it can be defined as follows. So, the summary of contraction is characteristic formal pattern of synthetic categories or features usually associated with some meaning and or discourse function. The use of word pattern here is an attempt to be as theory neutral as possible. A pattern might be structure or a template or the output of a rule. The notion formal is meant to include aspects of form which are of significance to grammar. In some theories, word order is a primitive of grammar, while in other theories, word order is derived from structure, such the structure but not linear order word, count as formal property.
I'm Oktafia Dwi Susanti. Now I will tell you about different construction, different meaning. Okay. First, we state at the beginning of this chapter that different constructions have been developed by the speakers of language to allow them to distinguish clearly between the different things they do with language, or making assertions, asking questions, and so on. The choice of the construction is determined by what precedes it in a given conversation or letter C. In fact, to make the example more realistic, we should change it to the example different construction, different meaning. Like example, the wealthy young man bought his secret fiancée that piano. It's same with he bought her that piano. One of the enduring habits of speakers is that they introduce a participant into a narrative by means of a full noun phrase containing a noun and possibly an article and adjective and so on, but thereafter refer to that participant by means of a pronoun. Example: you were asking about the piano you saw. Frank Churchill was a wealthy young man who came to stay in Hartfield. His secret fiancée was living in Hartfield with Mr. and Miss Bates. He bought her that piano. The fact that sentences are typically combined to create longer text is why many manuals of language include a selection of different texts in addition to the details of the morphology and syntax of a given language. Now we will talk about the first example. The wealthy young man bought that piano for his secret fiancée. It's active declarative. And the second, that piano was bought for his secret fiancée by the wealthy young man. It's a passive. Why is it called passive? Because the term passive comes historically from the Latin verb pagere, I suffer, or more exactly from its past participle, as in past sum or having suffered, I am, that is, I have suffered. This label was chosen for clauses in English and other languages which take as their starting point the participant on whom an action is carried about, that is, who suffers the action. It contrasts active clause take as their starting point the participant who carries out an action, who is active a given situation. Then I will give more example. The piano was bought for his secret fiancée by the wealthy young man. It's a long passive because it contains an agent noun phrase. That piano was bought for his secret fiancée. It's a short passive because it doesn't have a phrase referring to the do, or agent. Long passive, an agent noun phrase is the wealthy young man. Then short passive, it doesn't have a phrase referring to the do, or agent because that piano was bought for his secret fiancée. It's without the wealthy young man in short passive.
And next, the type of contraction. The type of contraction is there are copula and non-copula. Copula usually use link verb and non-copula ordinary verb. So there are declarative and interrogative. Declarative structure used for making statement, and the interrogative the structure used for asking question. Interrogative contraction split into two types. The first, yes or no interrogative, and VH interrogative. Yes, no interrogative used for asking question in which the answer is yes or no. VH interrogative use asking question about participant in a situation. The example here you can see yes or no, did he phone, and VH interrogative you can see who, when, what, where. Here you can see the example. So next, declarative and interrogative contraction. Declarative contraction, there are active and passive, and you can see the example. In interrogative contraction, there are active and passive, and the example you can see in here. And in declarative contraction, the verb can be followed by a noun phrase and a propositional phrase. The example you can see, Frank bought the piano for Jen. The piano, noun phrase, and the Jen, propositional phrase. Number 2, to noun phrase. To noun phrase, you can see the example. Frank bought Jen the piano. You can see Jen noun phrase and piano noun phrase. Here you can see interrogative contraction. Here there are oblique object and number 2 double object. And here you can see the example.
Okay, in the previous slide, we discussed about the introduction of the construction, and then the types of the construction, and then the different construction and the different meaning, and then the relationship between construction. And now we will explain about the copula construction. Actually, in construction have two types. The first is copula construction, and then the second is non-copula construction. For construction, it starts with simple. So we know that in one sentence, how many types a sentence? Okay, in general, there are 3 types sentence. The first is declarative, and then interrogative, and then the last is imperative. And now we talk about copula construction. What is a copula construction? Copula is the Latin word for link or connection, or in other words, we can say that copula construction is the construction that has the verb be or linking verb. For example, Fiona is very happy. From this sentence, we can indicate that there are copula and then descriptive and then assertive. What is assertive? Assertive are used to describe a property to an entity, or we can remember that after to be there is adjective phrase, we can say is assertive. And then the second example is Fiona is the best student. From this sentence, we can indicate or we can reconstruction the sentence that this copula and then descriptive and then accusative. What is accusative? Accusative is used to state the one entity is identical with another entity, or we can say that after to be there is non-phrase, we can say it's accusative. And then the last example is Fiona is in optometry. From this sentence, we can indicate or we can reconstruction the sentence. There is copula and then declarative and then locative. What is locative? Locative are clauses with followed with identifying as located, or we can remember that after to be there is a preposition or in, we can say it locative. And actually in copula construction cannot be made passive statement or passive sentence. Okay, the second is non-copula construction. What is non-copula construction? Non-copula construction is ordinary verb or action verb, and but copula and non-copula construction can be declarative. That is, they can have the structure of used for making statement, and interrogative. That is, they can have the structure used for asking question. For example, the first, Frank bought the piano for Jen. From this sentence, we can indicate or we can reconstruction the sentence that there are non-copula, declarative, active, oblique object. What is a oblique object? Oblique object, it is similar to the indirect object, but it occurs in preposition phrase, such as at, in, on, by, and for. And then the second example is Frank bought Jen the piano. From this sentence, we can indicate or we can reconstruction the sentence. There are non-copula, and then declarative, and then active, and then double object. And then the third example is the piano was bought for Jen by Frank. From this sentence, we can indicate that there are non-copula, declarative, passive, and oblique object or preposition. And the last example is the piano Frank bought for Jen. From that sentence, we can indicate that non-copula, there are non-copula, and then declarative, and then active, and then oblique object, and topic and this method. And if we talk about declarative, so here we also talk about interrogative. For example, did Frank buy the piano for Jen? There are, from this sentence, we can indicate there are non-copula, and then interrogative, and then yes, no, and then active, and then oblique object. And then the second example is, did Frank buy Jen the piano? From the sentence, we can also indicate that non-copula, interrogative, yes, no, active, and double object. And the last example is, was the piano bought for Jen by Frank? From the sentence, we can indicate or we can reconstruction the sentence. There are non-copula, and then interrogative, and then yes, no, and then passive, and oblique object. Okay, thank you so much for your attention. Wassalamualaikum. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Okay, thank you so much for your attention. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.